The gold had already been counted twice, when Yardley realized the men who hired him were planning to kill the orc woman themselves, slowly. And they expected him to deliver her alive, so they could enjoy it. He had seen the rope, the iron hooks, the way their eyes gleamed when they described what she had supposedly done to their cattle, their crops, their livelihoods. Finn had been hunting bounties for 7 years across 3 territories, and he knew the difference between justice and cruelty. This was cruelty wearing justice's mask. The contract had seemed straightforward enough. An orc woman, living alone in the western foothills, accused of raiding farms and killing livestock. The price was generous, suspiciously so, but Finn had mouths to feed back home and debts that would not wait. 3 farmers from the settlement of Breakwood had pooled their coin, showed him a crude sketch of the target, and given him directions to her last known location. They wanted her alive. They had emphasized that part repeatedly, with smiles that never reached their eyes. It took Finn 4 days of hard riding to reach the foothills, following trails that grew fainter with each mile. The land here was harsh and beautiful, all granite outcroppings and wind-twisted pines, with valleys so green they hurt to look at in the morning light. He saw no farms, no settlements, nothing that would explain why anyone would care about one orc woman living in this forgotten corner of the world. He found her cabin on the 5th day, tucked into a narrow valley beside a cold stream. Smoke rose from the chimney in a thin gray line. Chickens scratched in a small yard, and a vegetable garden sprawled beside the cabin, orderly rows of plants thriving in the mountain soil. A milk cow watched him approach with bovine indifference. Everything about the scene spoke of careful tending, of someone building a life rather than destroying one. Finn dismounted 100 yards out and approached on foot, his crossbow loaded but not raised. He had learned long ago that how you approached someone determined how they would respond. He made noise deliberately, let his boots crunch on the gravel, gave her every chance to know he was coming. The door opened before he reached it. The orc woman stood in the doorway, and Finn felt his carefully prepared words die in his throat. She was younger than he had expected, probably not yet 20, with the kind of face that would have been called striking in any species. Her skin was the deep green of summer leaves, and her tusks were small, almost delicate, curving up from her lower jaw. Dark hair fell past her shoulders in a thick braid. She wore a simple homespun dress, an apron, and had flour on her hands. She looked at him with eyes that were too old for her face, eyes that had already accepted whatever he had come to do. "I know why you are here," she said. Her voice was steady, but Finn heard the tremor underneath. "Will you let me finish my bread first? It will burn if I leave it." The request was so unexpected, so utterly mundane, that Finn found himself nodding. She stepped back into the cabin, leaving the door open in silent invitation. He followed, cursing himself for the tactical mistake even as he made it. The cabin's interior was small but immaculate. Dried herbs hung from the rafters, filling the air with sage and lavender. A loom sat in one corner, half-finished cloth still stretched across it. Books lined a rough shelf, more books than Finn had expected. The bread she had mentioned sat in a pan near the fire, rising and golden. She used a cloth to pull the pan from the heat, set it on the table to cool, and then turned to face him. Her hands were shaking now, just slightly. "My name is Kora," she said. "I assume they told you I was a monster, a raider, a killer of livestock and perhaps children, depending on how creative they became." Finn kept his distance, his hand near his belt knife. "They said you destroyed their farms, killed their animals, cost them a year's income. And did they show you any proof, any evidence beyond their word?" She had him there. They had not. Just the sketch, the directions, and their righteous anger. Finn's instincts, the ones that had kept him alive through dozens of dangerous hunts, were screaming that something was wrong with this entire situation. "Why do they want you dead?" he asked, genuinely curious now. Kora's laugh was bitter. "Because I refuse to leave. This land, this valley, my grandfather claimed it 30 years ago. He built this cabin, planted that garden. When he died, he left it to my mother. When she died, she left it to me. But 3 years ago, prospectors found silver in the mountain. Not much, but enough. The farmers in Breakwood decided that orc land claims are not real claims, that we are just animals squatting on human territory." She moved to the table, picked up a leather folder and handed it to him. Inside were papers, old and carefully preserved. A land deed, signed and witnessed. Letters of correspondence with territorial officials. A survey map showing the valley and her claim clearly marked. "They tried to buy me out first," Kora continued. "I said no. Then they tried to intimidate me. Killed my cow, the first one, shot her in the field and left her to rot. Poisoned my well, burned my shed. I rebuilt, dug a new well, bought another cow. So they spread lies about me, said I was dangerous, said I was raiding their farms. Now they have hired you." Finn studied the papers. They looked legitimate, but he was no expert in territorial law. "These could be forged. They could be, but they are not." She met his eyes, and he saw no deception there, only exhausted defiance. "You are going to kill me anyway, I know that. I just wanted you to know that when you do, you are murdering someone for the crime of refusing to surrender her home." He should have done it then. Quick, clean, professional. He had killed before, though never without cause, and if her story was true, then he had no cause here. But if her story was a lie, if she truly had destroyed those farms, then he was standing in a cabin with a dangerous criminal who had just tricked him into lowering his guard. "I need to verify your story," he said finally. Surprise flickered across her face. "You are not going to kill me." "Not until I know the truth." He folded the papers, tucked them back into the folder. "You have food here, enough for a guest. I have bread, eggs, cheese from yesterday's milk." She studied him warily. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I am not a murderer." Finn moved to the window, checked the sight lines, evaluated approaches. "And because something about this contract stank from the beginning. How long until they come looking? They gave you 2 weeks to find me and bring me back. Then we have time." He turned back to her, saw the confusion and fragile hope warring in her expression. "I am going to visit those farms, talk to the owners. If I find evidence you did what they claimed, I will come back and we will discuss what happens next. If I do not find evidence, then we have a different problem." "You would lie to them, tell them I am dead when I am alive, if necessary." Finn smiled without humor. "I have done worse for better reasons." Kora sat down slowly as if her legs would no longer hold her. "I do not understand. You are human, I am orc. Why would you help me?" "Because right is right, regardless of who has green skin and who does not." He moved toward the door. "I will be back in 4 days. Lock your door at night. Keep your shotgun loaded if you have one. Do not trust anyone who comes riding up that valley." "I do not have a shotgun." Finn paused, considering. Then he pulled a pistol from his belt, checked the load, and set it on the table. "Keep this. It has 6 shots. Do not waste them." She stared at the weapon as if it might bite her. "I do not know how to shoot." "Then you better learn fast." He opened the door, then looked back. 4 days, Kora. Stay alive until then." The ride back to Breakwood took 2 days if he pushed hard. Finn did not push hard. He needed time to think, to plan, to decide what he was really going to do. The smart play was to fulfill the contract, collect his gold, and ride away. The men who hired him did not need to know what they did to her afterward. That was not his business, not his problem. But Finn had rules. They were not complicated rules, but they were absolute. He did not kill the innocent. He did not enable torture. He did not betray someone who had trusted him with the truth. If Kora's story checked out, if those farmers were lying, then he was going to have to decide which rule mattered more than gold. He reached the outlying farms on the evening of the second day. These were hardscrabble operations, barely more than homesteads carved from the difficult soil. The crops looked healthy enough, though. The livestock seemed well fed. He saw no signs of the systematic destruction the farmers had described. He visited each farm in turn, asking casual questions, playing the role of a passing traveler. The families were friendly enough if suspicious of strangers. No one mentioned orc raiders. No one spoke of destroyed crops or slaughtered animals. When he asked directly about troubles with orcish neighbors, they looked confused. "Orcs," said one farmer, a weathered woman named Petra, "have not seen orcs around here in years. They keep to themselves up in the hills mostly. No trouble from them that I have heard." Finn thanked her for the information and moved on. By the time he reached Breakwood proper, his suspicions had hardened into certainty. The three men who hired him were liars, and their lies had a purpose beyond simple greed. They wanted Kora dead, wanted it badly enough to spend significant gold on a bounty hunter, wanted it enough to risk the territorial law that theoretically protected even orc land claims. He found the three men in the town's only tavern, drinking and laughing with the ease of people who believed they had already won. Finn recognized them from the initial meeting. Garrett Hollies, the leader, a thick-necked man with a prospector's calloused hands. His two companions, brothers named Daniel and Marcus Hollies, had the same cruel eyes their cousin did. "Yardley," Garrett called out when he saw Finn enter. "Back already? Please tell me you brought us good news." Finn walked to their table, deliberately kept his expression neutral. "Found her. Just where you said she would be." "And," Garrett leaned forward eagerly, "is she secured? Did you bring her?" "She is dead," Finn said flatly. "Tried to run when I approached, fell down a ravine, broke her neck. I buried her where she landed." The silence that followed was profound. The three men stared at him, their expressions cycling through disbelief, anger, and something that looked almost like grief. "Dead," Daniel finally said. "You are sure?" "I have been hunting bounties for 7 years. I know a broken neck when I see one." Finn pulled a small leather pouch from his coat, dropped it on the table. It contained a braid of dark hair, some glass beads, a few personal items. He had purchased them from a trader on the road, insurance for this exact conversation. "Her effects? Not much, but you said you wanted proof." Garrett picked up the pouch, opened it, examined the contents. His face had gone red, and Finn could see the fury building behind his eyes. "You were supposed to bring her alive. Contracts change when the target runs." Finn kept his voice level, professional. "Would you rather I let her escape?" "You hired me to solve your orc problem. It is solved. She is dead and will not bother you again." "We wanted her alive," Marcus said, his voice rising. "We paid for her alive. You paid for her stopped. She is stopped." Finn held Garrett's gaze, let steel show in his own. "If you wanted something specific done to her, you should have said so in the contract. I am a bounty hunter, not a torturer. Your problem is solved. Pay me the balance and I will be on my way." For a long moment, Finn thought they might refuse, might push the issue to violence. He had his hand near his knife, had already mapped the exits, calculated who would move first. Then Garrett laughed, a harsh sound with no humor in it. "You are right," he said, though his eyes said otherwise. "Dead is dead. Marcus, pay the man his gold." The exchange was tense but completed without incident. Finn counted the coins, pocketed them, and stood. "Pleasure doing business with you. I will be moving on to the next territory. Best of luck with your farms." He was out of the tavern and back on his horse within minutes, but he did not ride far. Instead, he circled back, found a vantage point overlooking the town, and waited. His instincts told him the Holly's men would not accept his story, would not simply let the matter die. He was right. As the sun set, all three men emerged from the tavern, saddled horses, and rode west toward the foothills. They were armed and they rode with purpose. They were going to check his story, going to look for Kora's body, and when they did not find it, they were going to go after her themselves. Finn gave them a 10-minute head start, then followed. He was a better tracker than they were, and he knew how to stay unseen. They would lead him right back to Kora's valley, and he needed to be there when they arrived. The ride through the night was hard and cold. Finn pushed his horse as fast as he dared in the darkness, relying on moonlight and memory to guide him. He had to reach Kora before the Holly's men did, had to warn her, had to make a choice about what happened next. He reached her valley as dawn broke, his horse lathered and exhausted. The cabin door was closed, smoke rising from the chimney. He dismounted, ran to the door, pounded on the wood. "Kora, open up! They are coming!" The door opened immediately. She stood there with his pistol in her hand, pointed at the ground but ready. She had not slept, he could see that from her eyes. She had been waiting, prepared for whatever came next. "How many?" she asked. "3. The men who hired me. I told them you were dead, but they did not believe me. They will be here within the hour." He pushed past her into the cabin. "We need to go, now. Pack what you can carry, leave the rest." "No." Her voice was firm. "I am not leaving my home, not for them, not for anyone. Kora, they are going to kill you, then I will die here." She set the pistol on the table, met his eyes with a determination that was simultaneously admirable and infuriating. "This is my land, my grandfather's land. I will not run from it because cruel men want to take it from me." Finn wanted to argue, wanted to physically drag her from the cabin if necessary, but he saw the set of her jaw and knew it would be pointless. She had drawn her line and she would not cross it, which meant he needed to draw his own. "All right," he said. "We make a stand, but we do it smart. You have any other weapons, anything we can use?" "I have an axe, some knives, that is all. It would have to be enough." Finn began moving through the cabin, assessing defenses, planning fields of fire. The cabin had 3 windows and 1 door. The walls were solid timber, but they would not stop bullets. The root cellar beneath the floor might provide cover if things went badly. He had 6 shots in his own pistol, 6 in the one he had given Kora, and his crossbow with a dozen bolts. Against 3 armed men, the odds were not good, but they were not impossible. "Can you actually shoot that pistol?" he asked. "I practiced last night. I am not good, but I can pull the trigger." "That will have to do." He handed her the weapon, showed her how to hold it properly. "Do not fire unless I tell you to. When you do fire, aim for the largest part of the body, the chest. Do not try for headshots, do not get fancy, just point and shoot. Understand?" She nodded, her face pale but composed. "Why are you doing this? You could leave, take your gold and ride away." "This is not your fight. It became my fight when I decided not to kill you." Finn moved to the window, checked the approach from the valley entrance. "Besides, I have never liked bullies, and those 3 men are bullies with money, which is the worst kind." They waited in tense silence as the sun climbed higher. Finn positioned Kora in the back corner of the cabin, behind the overturned table. He took the front window, his crossbow loaded and ready. Every minute felt like an hour. Every sound from outside became a potential threat. The Holly's men appeared just after mid-morning, riding hard up the valley. They did not bother with stealth, did not care who saw them coming. Arrogance and anger made them careless, and carelessness was a weapon Finn knew how to exploit. They dismounted 50 yards from the cabin. Garrett cupped his hands around his mouth and shouted, "Yardley, we know you lied. We know she is still alive. Send her out and maybe we let you walk away from this." Finn called back from the window. "Go home, Garrett. Your fight is with me now, not her. You broke contract, Yardley. That is a killing offense in these territories. You lied about the contract from the beginning. She has done nothing to you or your farms. I have witnesses who will testify to that." Garrett's response was a bullet. It punched through the window frame 6 inches from Finn's head, showering him with splinters. The negotiations were over. Finn dropped below the window line, gave Kora a quick glance. She was crouched behind the table, the pistol gripped in both hands, her face set with grim determination. He nodded to her, then rose quickly and fired his crossbow in one smooth motion. The bolt took Daniel in the shoulder, spinning him around and dropping him to the ground. Not a killing shot, but enough to take him out of the fight. Finn ducked back down as return fire shattered what remained of the window glass. "Two left," he called to Kora. "Stay down. Do not fire until they try to come through the door." But they did not try the door. Instead, they tried fire. Finn smelled the smoke before he saw it, acrid and sharp. They had torched the shed, and now they were using burning branches to set the cabin itself alight. The dry timber would go up fast once it caught. "Root cellar," Finn snapped. Now, Kora pulled up the trapdoor, disappeared into the darkness below. Finn followed, pulling the door shut above them. The cellar was cramped and dark, smelling of earth and stored vegetables. They could hear the fire crackling above, hear the shouts of the Holly's men as they circled the cabin, making sure their prey had no escape. "There is a tunnel," Kora whispered. "My grandfather built it, in case of raids. It comes out near the stream behind the rocks. Can we reach it? If the fire has not spread too far, yes." They crawled through the darkness, feeling their way along the tunnel walls. It was narrow, barely wide enough for Finn's shoulders, and seemed to go on forever. Behind them, he heard the crash of timbers as the cabin roof collapsed. Ahead, finally, he saw light. They emerged into the afternoon sun behind a tumble of boulders, far enough from the burning cabin that the Holly's men had not thought to watch the spot. Finn pulled Kora out of the tunnel, assessed their situation. They had the high ground now and cover. The Holly's men were between them and the valley entrance, but they were also distracted by the fire, confident that their quarry was trapped or dead. "Stay here," Finn told Kora. "Keep the pistol ready. If anyone other than me comes up that slope, shoot them." "Where are you going to end this?" He moved through the rocks like a ghost, using every scrap of cover, every shadow. The crossbow was useless now, left behind in the cabin. He had his pistol and his knife and surprise on his side. It would have to be enough. Marcus Holly stood watching the cabin burn, his back to the slope. Finn came up behind him silent and fast. The blow to the back of his head dropped him like a stone. Finn dragged him behind a rock, bound his hands with the man's own belt, and moved on. Garrett was harder. He had moved away from the fire, was scanning the surrounding rocks as if sensing a threat. Finn could not get close without being seen, so he did not try. Instead, he stood up, pistol aimed, and spoke clearly. "It is over, Garrett. Your brother is down. Daniel is bleeding. You are alone. Drop your weapon." Garrett spun, bringing his rifle up, and Finn had no choice. He fired. The bullet took Garrett in the leg, a deliberate wound, not a killing shot. Garrett went down screaming, his rifle clattering away across the rocks. Finn kicked the rifle further away, then moved to where Daniel still lay clutching his wounded shoulder. The man was pale but conscious. Finn relieved him of his weapons, then called for Kora. She appeared from the rocks, the pistol still in her hand but shaking now. She looked at the burning cabin, at the 3 injured men, and her face crumpled. Finn saw her fighting tears, saw her losing. "My home," she said softly. Everything I had, I know. Finn moved to her side, wanted to offer comfort but did not know how. I am sorry, I should have made you leave. You could not have made me do anything. She wiped at her eyes, straightened her shoulders. What do we do with them? We tie them up, take them back to Breakwood. Let the territorial marshal sort this out. You have your land deeds still in my pocket. I grabbed them before we went into the cellar. Then we have evidence. We have the Hollies' men attacking us without provocation. We have their confession to filing false claims. The law might actually be on our side for once. It took 2 hours to secure the 3 men, tend their wounds enough to keep them alive, and prepare for the ride to Breakwood. Kora moved through it all with mechanical efficiency, but Finn could see the shock setting in, the reality of loss hitting her in waves. She kept looking back at the smoldering ruins of her cabin, at the home that had been her entire world. They rode out as the sun began to set, 3 prisoners and 2 exhausted survivors. Finn led Garrett's horse, Kora led Marcus's, and Daniel rode his own mount with his hands bound to the saddle horn. No one spoke. There was nothing to say. Breakwood's marshal was a woman named Sarah Quentin, hard-eyed and fair-minded. She listened to Finn's report, examined Kora's documents, interviewed the Hollies' men separately. By morning, she had the full story, and her verdict was clear. The Hollies' men will stand trial for arson, attempted murder, and fraud, she announced. Miss Kora's land claim is legitimate and will be respected. Mr. Yardley, you acted in justified defense of an innocent party. No charges will be filed against you. And her cabin, Finn asked. Her home. The Hollies' family will pay restitution for the destruction of property. It is not much, but it is what the law allows. Marshal Quentin turned to Kora. You are free to return to your land, miss. I will provide a letter of protection. Anyone who bothers you again will answer to territorial law. Kora took the letter with numb hands. Thank you, Marshal. Outside the marshal's office, in the gray light of dawn, Finn and Kora stood in the street and faced each other. She looked lost, smaller somehow than she had in her cabin, as if losing her home had taken some essential part of her. What will you do now? Finn asked. Go back, I suppose, rebuild. It is my land, I have nowhere else to go. Winter is coming. You cannot live in a burned cabin through winter. I will build a shelter, I have done it before. But her voice lacked conviction, lacked the fire he had heard when she defied him the first time. Finn made a decision that would change everything. It was stupid, reckless, and completely contrary to his nature. He had always been a solitary man, had always moved from job to job with no ties, no attachments. But something about this green-skinned woman with her small tusks and determined eyes had gotten under his defenses. Come with me, he said. She looked at him in surprise. What? I have a place. A small ranch, 2 days south of here. Nothing fancy, but it has a roof and walls and a working fireplace. You can stay there while you figure out what to do next, while you heal. I cannot ask you to do that. You are not asking. I am offering. He met her eyes, let her see he meant it. You trusted me when you had no reason to. Let me do this for you, at least until spring. Then you can decide if you want to go back to your valley or try something else. Why? The question was soft, but it held a universe of confusion. I am an orc. You are human. Your neighbors will not understand. They will think things, say things. Let them think and say what they want. I stopped caring about other people's opinions years ago. Finn smiled slightly. Besides, I could use help with the horses. My hired hand ran off last month and I have been managing alone. You would be earning your keep, not accepting charity. He could see her wavering, see the exhaustion and loss warring with her pride. Finally, she nodded. Until spring, she said. Then I will go back to my land. Until spring, he agreed, and ignored the small voice in his head that said spring was a long way off, and a lot could happen between now and then. The ride to Finn's ranch took 3 days. They traveled slowly, both of them still recovering from the fight, from the adrenaline crash that followed violence. They spoke little, but the silence between them was companionable rather than awkward. At night, they made camp and shared simple meals, and Finn began to learn the small details that made Kora who she was. She sang while she worked, old orc songs in a language he did not understand. She had a weakness for honey, would eat it straight from the jar if he let her. She was afraid of deep water but loved the rain. She read every evening before sleep, books of poetry and history that she had rescued from her burning cabin. She was 22 years old, had never been more than 30 miles from the valley where she was born, and had never kissed anyone. That last detail surprised him more than it should have. She was beautiful in her way, strong and fierce and kind. But she lived alone, rejected by both orc and human society, caught between two worlds with no place in either. "My clan cast me out when I was 16, she told him one night by the fire. "They said my mother shamed them by claiming human land, by trying to live by human laws. After she died, they wanted me to come back to the clan, to renounce the land claim and return to the old ways. I refused. So they exiled me. In their eyes, I am already dead." "And your father?" Finn asked. "I never knew him. He was human, a trader who passed through one winter. My mother loved him, or thought she did. He left before I was born." She smiled without humor. "I am the product of two worlds, and neither one wants me." "I want you here," Finn said, and realized as he said it that it was true. Not just as a hired hand, not just as someone who needed help. He wanted her presence, her voice, her company. The realization was alarming and exhilarating in equal measure. Kora looked at him across the fire, her green eyes reflecting the flames. "You are a strange man, Finn Yardley. I have been called worse." His ranch, when they finally reached it, was modest but well-maintained. A solid house with 3 rooms, a barn for the horses, a chicken coop and fenced pastures stretching across rolling hills. It was not much, but it was his, bought with bounty money and hard work. He had thought it would be enough for him, a place to rest between jobs, a home base to return to. Now, seeing it through Kora's eyes, he wondered if it might become something more. "It is beautiful," she said softly. "It is practical," he corrected, but he was pleased by her reaction. "The house is small. You can have the back bedroom, I will take the front. There is a washroom with a pump, and the kitchen is adequate." She turned to him, sudden tears in her eyes. "I do not know how to thank you. Do not thank me yet. You have not seen how much work the horses require." But she was not fooled by his gruff tone. She stepped closer, reached up and gently touched his cheek. Her hand was warm, her skin rougher than human skin but not unpleasant. The touch lasted only a moment, but Finn felt it long after she pulled away. The next weeks fell into a pattern. Finn taught Kora how to handle the horses, how to muck stalls and measure feed, how to check for injuries and signs of illness. She was a quick learner, strong and careful, and the horses took to her immediately. In return, she cooked meals that were far better than his usual fare, cleaned the house without being asked, and gradually transformed his Spartan existence into something that felt like a home. They worked side by side through the autumn days, talking about everything and nothing. She told him about orc culture, about the clan structures and honor codes that had shaped her childhood. He told her about his years as a bounty hunter, about the jobs that haunted him and the few he was proud of. They argued about books, about politics, about the best way to make bread. They laughed more than he expected, found humor in small things, built inside jokes that meant nothing to anyone but them. And slowly, carefully, without quite meaning to, Finn fell in love with her. He did not realize it at first. He told himself that the catch in his breath when she smiled was simple attraction. He told himself that the way he looked for her first thing every morning was habit. He told himself that the fierce protectiveness he felt, the desire to keep her safe and happy, was just responsibility for a guest in his home. But on a cold night in late October, when he found her crying in the barn over a letter from the territorial office, he finally understood. The letter informed her that the Hollies men had been convicted and sentenced, that her land was officially hers again, that she could return whenever she wished. She should have been happy. Instead, she was weeping like her heart would break. Kora. He knelt beside her in the straw, put a tentative hand on her shoulder. "What is wrong? This is good news." "I know," she said through her tears. "I know it is good news. My land is mine. I am vindicated. Everything I wanted, everything I fought for." "Then why are you crying?" She turned to him, her face streaked with tears, her eyes full of misery. "Because I do not want to go back. I thought I did. I thought that land, that valley, was everything. But being here with you, I have been happier these past weeks than I have been in years. And in the spring I will have to leave, and I do not know how I will bear it." Finn's heart, which he had thought thoroughly armored against such feelings, cracked wide open. He pulled her to him, held her close, and felt her sob against his chest. She fit there perfectly, as if she had been made to fill that exact space. "Then do not leave," he said quietly. "Stay here. Make this your home instead." She pulled back, looked at him with hope and fear warring in her expression. "I cannot ask you to do that. People will talk. They will say terrible things about both of us. You will lose business. Your neighbors will shun you. I do not care." And he realized he truly did not. What did reputation matter? What did other people's opinions matter compared to the way she made him feel? "Stay, Kora, please. Not as a hired hand, not as a temporary guest. Stay because I want you here, because I need you here." Finn. His name was a whisper, a prayer, a question. He answered it the only way he could. He kissed her. It was gentle at first, tentative, giving her every chance to pull away. But she did not pull away. Instead, she made a small sound in her throat and kissed him back with a hunger that matched his own. Her tusks pressed lightly against his lips, a strange sensation that was somehow perfect. Her hands came up to grip his shoulders and his buried themselves in her hair. And for a long moment the world narrowed to just the two of them, the warmth of her mouth, the beating of their hearts. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Finn rested his forehead against hers. "I love you," he said. The words felt both terrifying and inevitable. "I know it is fast. I know it is complicated, but I love you, Kora. I think I have loved you since you asked me to let you finish your bread." She laughed, a sound caught between joy and tears. "I love you too. I have been trying so hard not to. I told myself it was impossible, that you could never feel the same way, that I would just get hurt. But I love you, Finn Yardley. I love you so much it frightens me. Do not be frightened." He kissed her again, softer this time. "We will figure this out. Together." They stayed in the barn for hours, talking and kissing and making whispered plans. When they finally returned to the house, it was past midnight and the world felt transformed. Everything looked the same, but nothing was the same. Finn had spent 7 years building walls around his heart, and Kora had demolished them in 8 weeks. The next morning, Finn rode into town. He had business to conduct, arrangements to make. If Kora was staying, if they were truly building a life together, then he needed to make it official. The territorial office had a bored clerk who perked up at Finn's request. "You want to file what now?" "A marriage license. For myself and Kora." Finn did not use her last name because she had never given him one, had said her clan name was forfeit when they exiled her. Kora, the orc woman. The one involved in the Holly's case, the same. The clerk leaned back in his chair, studying Finn with open curiosity. That is unusual, Mr. Yardley. Not illegal, but definitely unusual. There will be talk. I do not care about talk. Can you file it or not? I can file it. The clerk pulled out the appropriate forms. You will need to appear before a magistrate within 30 days to finalize it. Judge Harrow makes the circuit through here once a month. He will be back in 3 weeks. 3 weeks is fine. Finn filled out the forms carefully, making sure every detail was correct. When he was done, he paid the fee and received a receipt. Thank you for your help. Yardley, the clerk stopped him at the door. For what it is worth, I think it is nice. What you are doing, not many people would. Finn nodded and left. He made one more stop at a jeweler's shop, where he spent far too much money on a ring. It was simple silver, sized for smaller fingers with a green stone that matched Kora's eyes. The jeweler raised an eyebrow but said nothing, just took the payment and wished Finn luck. He returned to the ranch that evening to find Kora in the kitchen, making dinner. She looked up when he entered, and her smile was sunshine breaking through clouds. I was beginning to worry, she said. You were gone a long time. I had errands. He crossed to where she stood, suddenly nervous. He had faced down armed criminals without flinching, but the idea of what he was about to do terrified him. Kora, I need to ask you something. She set down her spoon, gave him her full attention. What is it? He pulled out the ring, held it up between them. I know we have only known each other 2 months. I know this is fast, probably too fast, but I do not want to waste time. I do not want to wait until spring or summer or some arbitrary point in the future. I want to build a life with you starting now. So I am asking you, Kora, will you marry me? Her hands flew to her mouth. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but she was smiling, laughing, nodding all at once. Yes, yes, Finn, I will marry you. I will absolutely marry you. He slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. She threw her arms around him, and he lifted her off her feet, spun her around the kitchen while she laughed. When he set her down, she kissed him with such fierce joy that he forgot to breathe. I filed the paperwork today, he said when they finally broke apart. We can make it official in 3 weeks when the circuit judge comes through. Until then, as far as I am concerned, you are already my wife. And you are my husband. She said the word carefully, testing it. Husband, I like how that sounds. So do I. They married on a cold November afternoon in the territorial courthouse, with Marshal Quentin and the board clerk as witnesses. Judge Harrow performed the ceremony, a simple civil service that took less than 10 minutes. Finn wore his best shirt. Kora wore a new dress they had bought together in town, blue fabric that set off her green skin beautifully. She kept the silver ring on her finger and held Finn's hand like she would never let go. I now pronounce you husband and wife, Judge Harrow intoned. Mr. Yardley, you may kiss your bride. Finn did thoroughly and did not care that they had an audience. When they finally broke apart, Kora was flushed and beaming, and he felt like the luckiest man in 3 territories. They celebrated with dinner at the town's only restaurant, enduring stares and whispers from other patrons. Finn ignored them all, focused entirely on his wife, on the way she laughed at his jokes and told stories about her childhood and looked at him like he had hung the stars. They returned to the ranch as the sun set, riding together on Finn's horse, Kora nestled against his chest. The house looked warm and welcoming, smoke rising from the chimney, lights glowing in the windows. Finn had never thought of it as home before, not really. It had just been a place he stayed between jobs. But now, with Kora beside him, it felt like the center of his universe. That night, they made love for the first time in the bed they would share for the rest of their lives. It was awkward and sweet and perfect, full of whispered questions and gentle laughter and moments of breathless wonder. Afterwards, Kora lay in Finn's arms, her head on his chest, tracing patterns on his skin with one finger. "I never thought I would have this," she said softly. "A husband, a home. Someone who loves me despite everything." "Not despite everything," Finn corrected. "Because of everything. You are strong and brave and kind, Kora. I am lucky you chose me. We chose each other." She tilted her head up, kissed him gently. "Promise me something, anything. Promise me we will always be honest with each other, that we will face problems together instead of hiding them. I want this marriage to last, Finn. I want us to last. I promise." He held her closer, feeling the solid warmth of her, the reality of her. "We will make mistakes. We will argue. But we will do it together. For as long as we both live." "For as long as we both live," she echoed and sealed the vow with another kiss. Winter came early that year, bringing snow and ice that blanketed the ranch in white silence. Finn had worried that Kora might find the isolation difficult, might miss having people around, might regret her choice. But she seemed to bloom in the quiet months, seemed to relax into the rhythm of ranch life. They worked together every day, tending the horses, repairing fences, chopping wood. Kora proved to be stronger than she looked, capable of hauling hay bales and splitting logs with impressive efficiency. In the evenings they cooked together, rode together, talked and laughed and made love by the fire. It was a simple life, but it was theirs. Finn took no new bounty contracts that winter. He had enough saved to get by, and he had no desire to leave Kora alone. She never asked him to stop hunting, never tried to change who he was, but he found his taste for the work had diminished. There were other ways to make a living, he reasoned. The ranch could support them if he put in the effort to expand it, and he was tired of violence, tired of chasing dangerous men for gold. "I think I am done with bounty hunting," he told Kora one snowy evening as they lay in bed. She turned to look at him, surprise in her eyes. "Because of me." "Because of us, because I have something worth staying home for now." He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "I thought bounty hunting was who I was, but it turns out it was just what I did. Who I am is your husband, and that is enough for me. What will you do instead? Focus on the ranch. Maybe take on some training work, teach people how to handle difficult horses. I am good at that, and there is always demand." He smiled. "Besides, someone needs to make sure you do not work yourself into exhaustion trying to do everything at once." She laughed and swatted his shoulder. "I do not work myself into exhaustion. You absolutely do. Yesterday I found you trying to re-shingle the barn roof in the middle of a snowstorm. The roof was leaking. The roof could have waited until the storm passed." He pulled her close, kissed the top of her head. "We are partners now, remember. That means we do things together and we do them at a reasonable pace. No more trying to prove you can handle everything alone." She was quiet for a moment, then nodded against his chest. "I am still learning how to do that. Trust someone else. Rely on someone else. It is harder than I expected. I know. But we have time. All the time in the world." News of their marriage spread slowly through the surrounding territories. Most people were indifferent, too focused on their own lives to care who Finn Yardley had married. A few were openly disapproving, and Finn lost several potential clients when they learned his wife was an orc. But others surprised him with their acceptance, even their support. Marshal Quentin rode out in early December with a wedding gift, a set of hand-forged kitchen knives. "I like her," the marshal said bluntly. "She has spine, you could do worse." "I could not do better," Finn replied. The jeweler from town appeared a week later with a matched set of silver bracelets. "For your wife," he said gruffly. "My own wife was Akorathi from the eastern clans. I know what it is like to love across the divide. You have my respect." Even some of the neighboring ranchers grudgingly accepted the situation. They might not invite Finn and Kora to social gatherings, but they also did not cause trouble. It was more than Finn had dared to hope for. The only real problem came from Kora herself, from her own lingering fears and insecurities. She had spent so much of her life being rejected, being told she did not belong, that she struggled to believe Finn's love was real and lasting. She would have moments of panic, convinced he would wake up one day and realize he had made a mistake, that she was too different, too other, too fundamentally wrong. Finn learned to recognize these moments, to see the signs in the way she held herself, the shadows in her eyes. He learned how to talk her through the fear, how to hold her and reassure her and show her again and again that he was not going anywhere. "I am yours," he told her one night when she woke from a nightmare, trembling and tearful. "I am yours until the day I die, Kora. Nothing will change that. Not other people's opinions, not your past, not the differences between us. You are my wife, my partner, the love of my life, and I will spend every day proving that to you if I have to." She clung to him, her tears soaking his shirt. "I am sorry. I know I am being foolish." "You are not being foolish. You are being human or orc or whatever word we want to use. You are being real." He kissed her forehead. "And I love you for it, every part of you, including the parts that are scared and hurting." Gradually, as winter deepened and the months passed, Kora's fears quieted. She began to truly believe what Finn had been telling her all along. She relaxed into the marriage, let herself be happy, let herself trust that this was real and permanent. By the time spring arrived, thawing the snow and turning the hills green again, Kora had transformed. She smiled more easily, laughed more freely, moved through the world with a confidence Finn had never seen in her before. She was still the same person, but she was also more herself, as if marriage had given her permission to fully exist. They stood on the porch one April morning, watching the sun rise over the hills, and Finn felt a contentment so profound it was almost painful. "I was thinking," Kora said, leaning against him, "about my land, the valley." Finn felt a cold spike of fear. "You want to go back?" "No, not to live." She turned to look at him, smiled at the relief that must have shone on his face. "But I thought perhaps we could visit, see what is salvageable. Maybe rebuild the cabin, not to live in, but to have as a retreat, a place to go in the summer when the ranch work is light. I think that is a good idea." Finn relaxed, pulled her closer. "It is your land, your legacy. You should not have to give it up completely just because you chose to build a life here. We could bring the horses, make a real trip of it, spend a week or two up there, just the two of us." Her eyes sparkled with excitement. "I could show you all my favorite places. The meadow where the wildflowers grow, the peak where you can see 3 territories on a clear day, the pool in the stream where I used to swim as a child." "That sounds perfect." They made the trip in late May, packing supplies and leading 2 of the gentler horses on long leads. The ride to the valley took 4 days, but Finn did not mind. Being on the road with Kora, camping under the stars, felt like an adventure rather than a chore. The valley, when they reached it, was both better and worse than Finn had expected. The cabin was indeed a total loss, just a charred foundation and scattered stones. But the land itself had recovered beautifully from the fire. Wildflowers carpeted the meadow. The stream ran clear and cold. The garden, untended, had gone wild but was still producing. Nature had reclaimed what humans had tried to destroy. They camped beside the stream, using the intact root cellar for storage. During the days, they explored the valley, and Kora shared her memories of growing up there. She showed him where her grandfather had built his first shelter, where her mother had planted fruit trees, where she had learned to track deer and set snares. "I am glad I left." she said one evening as they sat watching the sunset. "But I am also glad I came from here. This place made me who I am." "Then I am grateful to it," Finn said, "because I love who you are." They made plans for a new cabin, something smaller and simpler than the original. Not a permanent home, but a summer retreat, a place to connect with Kora's past while still looking toward their shared future. Finn sketched designs in the dirt, and Kora suggested modifications, and together they created something that felt right. When they finally left the valley to return to the ranch, Finn looked back once. He understood now why Kora had fought so hard to keep this place, why she had been willing to die rather than surrender it. It was not just land. It was identity, history, the physical manifestation of her family's refusal to be erased. "We will come back in the summer," he promised. "Start building. Maybe by next year we will have a cabin standing again." "Next year," Kora agreed. "I would like that." The ranch welcomed them home with familiar sights and sounds. The horses whinnied in greeting. The chickens clucked reproachfully about the lack of fresh scratch. Everything was exactly as they had left it, and yet Finn saw it with new eyes. This was home, truly home, in a way it had never been before. Summer passed in a blur of work and contentment. Finn took on 3 apprentices, young men interested in learning horse training, and discovered he enjoyed teaching. Kora expanded the garden, started keeping bees, experimented with cheese making. They worked hard, but they also made time for each other, for the quiet moments that built a marriage. In July, Kora realized she was pregnant. She told Finn one morning over breakfast, simply and directly, watching his face for his reaction. "I am going to have a baby," she said. "Our baby, in late winter, I think." Finn set down his coffee, his mind reeling. A baby. He was going to be a father. The idea was terrifying and wonderful in equal measure. "Are you happy?" Kora asked, and he heard the uncertainty in her voice. Happy does not begin to cover it. He stood, pulled her into his arms, held her close. "I am terrified and ecstatic and so deeply in love with you I can hardly breathe." "A baby, Kora, our baby." She laughed, relief evident in the sound. "I was worried you might not want children. We never discussed it. I never thought about it before, but now that you mention it, I cannot imagine anything better." He pulled back, looked at her seriously. "We will need to prepare. Get supplies, make arrangements. I want you to see a doctor, make sure everything is healthy." "I am strong," she protested. "Orc women have been having babies for centuries without doctors." "I know, but humor me, please." She smiled and kissed him. "All right, for you I will humor you." The pregnancy progressed without complications. Kora glowed with health, seemed to have boundless energy despite her growing belly. She worked alongside Finn through the autumn, refusing to slow down until he insisted she take breaks. "I am pregnant, not dying," she told him one afternoon when he caught her trying to haul a water barrel by herself. "And you will stay that way if you stop lifting things that weigh half as much as you do." He took the barrel from her, ignored her glare. "Rest, read a book, knit baby clothes. Do literally anything other than heavy labor. You are being ridiculous." "I am being careful. There is a difference." But despite their bickering, or perhaps because of it, the pregnancy drew them even closer. Finn found himself constantly aware of Kora, constantly watching over her, marveling at the changes in her body as their child grew. He would rest his hand on her belly at night, feeling the baby move, and be overwhelmed by the miracle of it. Winter came again, and with it the final preparations for the baby's arrival. They turned the spare room into a nursery, building a cradle and stocking supplies. The neighboring rancher's wife, a kind woman named Eliza, came by with advice and baby clothes her own children had outgrown. Even Marshal Quentin sent a gift, a hand-carved rocking horse for when the child was older. The baby came on a cold February night, in the middle of a snowstorm. Finn sent one of his apprentices for the midwife, but the storm made travel impossible. In the end, it was just Finn and Kora facing the ordeal together. It was the longest, hardest night of Finn's life. He had faced down armed criminals without flinching, but watching Kora in pain, unable to truly help her, was agony. He held her hand, offered water, said encouraging words that sounded hollow to his own ears. And through it all, Kora was incredible, strong and focused and determined. The baby arrived just before dawn, a squalling, perfect little person with green skin, a shade lighter than Kora's, and tiny tusks barely visible in her lower jaw. A girl. Their daughter. Kora held the baby against her chest, tears streaming down her face, and Finn felt his own eyes burn. He had never seen anything more beautiful than his wife and daughter in that moment, both of them exhausted and alive, and his. "She needs a name," Kora said softly. They had discussed names throughout the pregnancy, but had never quite decided. Now, looking at his daughter, Finn knew exactly what she should be called. "Hope," he said. "Her name should be Hope." Kora looked up at him, smiled through her tears. "Hope, yes, that is perfect." The days after Hope's birth were a blur of sleepless nights and constant wonder. Finn discovered that he loved being a father, loved holding his tiny daughter, loved watching Kora nurse her and sing to her in the old Orc language. He had thought he understood love before, but this was different, deeper, more all-encompassing than anything he had experienced. Friends and neighbors came by to meet the baby, bringing gifts and congratulations. Even some of the people who had disapproved of Finn's marriage seemed to soften when they saw Hope, seemed to realize that children were children regardless of their parentage. "She is beautiful," Eliza said, holding Hope carefully. "You two did good work." "We did we not?" Finn looked at Kora, who was beaming with maternal pride. "We really did." As winter turned to spring and spring to summer, the rhythm of their life adjusted to accommodate their daughter. Finn took on less training work, focused more on the ranch so he could be present for his family. Kora juggled motherhood and homemaking with the same determination she brought to everything else. Hope grew, thrived, became the bright center of their universe. On a warm July evening when Hope was 5 months old, Finn and Kora sat on the porch watching the sunset. Hope dozed in Kora's arms, one tiny fist curled against her mother's chest. Everything was peaceful, perfect, complete. "I never thought I would have this," Kora said quietly. "A family. People who love me, a place where I belong." "You always belonged," Finn replied. "You just needed to find the right place." "No." She looked at him, her green eyes soft with love. "I needed to find you. You made a place for me when no one else would. You chose me when I thought I was unchosen. You gave me everything I never dared to dream of." "We gave each other those things," Finn corrected. "I was just going through the motions before I met you. Working, surviving, but not really living. You taught me what it means to have a home, to have a purpose beyond the next job. You saved me, Kora, just as much as I saved you." She leaned against him, careful not to wake the baby. "Do you ever regret it? Taking the risk, lying to those men, changing your entire life for an Orc woman you barely knew, not for a single second?" Finn kissed the top of her head. "Best decision I ever made." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun dipped below the hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and gold. The horses grazed peacefully in the pasture. The chickens settled into their coop for the night. Everything was exactly as it should be. In his arms, Hope stirred and made a small sound, not quite a cry. Finn gently took her from Kora, cradled his daughter against his chest, and felt her settle immediately back into sleep. She trusted him completely, this tiny person who carried both human and Orc blood, who would grow up knowing she was loved and wanted and cherished. "What are you thinking?" Kora asked, watching him with their daughter. "I am thinking about the future," Finn said. "About Hope growing up here, learning to ride horses and tend the land. About maybe having more children if you want them. About building that cabin in your valley next summer, making it a place where Hope can learn about her heritage. About growing old with you, watching our daughter have children of her own someday." "That sounds like a good future," Kora said softly. "It sounds like the best future." The months turned to years. Hope learned to walk, to talk, to laugh with a joy that was infectious. Finn and Kora built the cabin in the valley, just as they had planned, and spent summers there as a family. They added 2 more children to their family, a son they named Thomas, and another daughter they named Grace. The ranch prospered, became known throughout the territories as the best place to learn horse training. Finn never went back to bounty hunting. He did not need to, did not want to. His life was full of better things now, of family dinners and bedtime stories, of teaching his children to ride and watching Kora tend her ever-expanding garden. The gold he had earned in his hunting years had bought him a ranch, but the choice he made to lie about one orc woman had bought him a life worth living. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, Finn would think back to that first day, when he had pounded on Kora's cabin door and she had asked if she could finish her bread. He would think about how close he had come to fulfilling that contract, to delivering her to men who would have killed her slowly and enjoyed it. He would think about all the ways his life might have gone differently, all the futures that had been possible before he made his choice. And then he would look at his wife, his children, his home, and know that he had chosen correctly. He had found something far more valuable than any bounty. He had found a family. He had found love. He had found himself. Kora seemed to sense these moments, would always come to him and take his hand and smile in that way that still made his heart race after all these years. "No regrets?" she would ask, because she knew him so well. "No regrets," he would always reply. "Not a single one," and it was true. The bounty hunter had found his target, lied about her death, and in doing so, found his own life. It was a story with an improbable happy ending, the kind of story people did not quite believe when they heard it. But it was their story, and it was real, and it was theirs. On a late autumn day, when Hope was 7 and Thomas was 5 and Grace was 3, the whole family made the trip to the valley cabin. It was the last trip of the season before winter made the roads impassable. The children ran through the meadow, chasing each other and laughing, while Finn and Kora watched from the porch of the cabin they had built together. "They are happy," Kora observed. "They are loved," Finn replied. "That makes all the difference." Hope came running up, her green skin flushed with exertion, her small tusks just visible when she grinned. "Papa! Mama! Come see what we found." They followed their daughter to the edge of the meadow where Thomas and Grace were examining something in the grass. It was a bird's nest, fallen from one of the trees with 3 perfect blue eggs inside. "Can we keep them?" Hope asked eagerly. "Can we take them home and hatch them?" "The eggs need their mother to keep them warm," Kora explained gently. "If we take them, they will not hatch. But we can put the nest back in the tree, help give them a chance." Together, as a family, they found the tree the nest had fallen from and carefully returned it to a secure branch. The mother bird, a robin, scolded them from a nearby branch but settled onto the nest as soon as they moved away. "Will the babies be okay?" Grace asked, her small face worried. "They have a chance now," Finn said. "That is all any of us can ask for, a chance." As they walked back to the cabin, Hope took his hand and Kora carried Grace while Thomas ran ahead. And Finn felt a gratitude so deep it was almost overwhelming. He had been given a chance, years ago, to do the right thing even when the wrong thing would have been easier. He had taken that chance, and it had led him here, to this perfect moment with his perfect family. The sun was setting as they packed up to return home. The valley looked golden in the evening light, beautiful and wild and peaceful. Finn took one last look at the place where Kora had grown up, where her grandfather and mother had fought to build a life against impossible odds. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" Kora asked, coming to stand beside him. "For being stubborn. For refusing to leave your valley when I first came for you. For trusting me enough to let me help. For saying yes when I asked you to marry me. For giving me this life." He pulled her close. "For everything." She smiled, rose on her toes, and kissed him softly. "Thank you for lying to those men. For choosing me over gold. For loving me when no one else would. Always," he promised. "For as long as I live." They loaded the children onto the horses and began the journey home. The ranch was waiting for them, warm and welcoming, full of the comfortable familiarity of daily life. There would be chores to do, lessons to teach, meals to prepare, bedtime stories to read. There would be good days and hard days, laughter and tears, all the ordinary moments that made up a life. But it would be their life, built on the foundation of a choice made years ago, when a bounty hunter decided that truth mattered more than gold, and that one orc woman's life was worth more than any contract. As they rode through the gathering twilight, with the stars beginning to appear overhead and their children's happy chatter filling the air, Finn Yardley knew he had everything he had ever wanted and everything he would ever need. He was home in every sense of the word, and he was happy. Truly, deeply, completely happy. The story could have ended so differently, but it ended like this, with a family with love, with a future bright with promise. And that, Finn thought, was the best ending of all.